Some breaking news coming in. India today test fired its cruise missile called Nirbhay, whose flight had to be terminated, however, halfway into the trial as the missile had deviated from its course developed in the country by the Defence Research and Development Organization. The missile is very hard to detect since it can fly at a treetop level and strike targets more than 700 kilometers carrying nuclear warheads. Well, to talk more about the Nirbhay mission, with us in studio, our science editor Pallav Bagla. Pallav, it's been called a mixed success. Why a mixed success? They had to terminate it midway, blow up the missile.
Well, this was the first flight of the missile. So when you have a first flight, there are many mission objectives. First is that the basic missile should lift off from its launcher. It lifted off from the launcher well, went into its flight. Halfway into the flight, something went wrong and the missile had to be terminated simply because it was deviating from its main course, and the Defence Research and Development Organization told me that for reasons of coastal safety, they had to terminate the flight. Terminate the flight means there is a explosive bomb which is kept inside the missile, which can be triggered when it deviates from its path. So from the Defence Research and Development Organization, what they are saying is it's a mixed success because it lifted off successfully, went for halfway very successfully, and then it deviated from its course and had to be terminated. It's a learning curve. You can't have a success in the very first flight. What happened with Agni 5 is a rarity.
Right.
With most missiles, you don't have success in the first go. Tasting success in full is not an easy job. So if the DRDO is calling it a mixed success, it is a mixed success, but some people may call it a flop simply because it failed halfway.
But the fact that they've been working on this since 2007, that it was created, and as you said, this is just a first step, and of course more tests will take place. So we shouldn't be quick to strike this off as a failure.
No, you can't strike it off as a failure. See, it's a learning curve. It takes time to master these complex technologies. Cruise missile is a very complex technology. It's a missile, the whole thing first lifts off like a missile. Then it turns into an aircraft and flies like an aircraft on wings. And it can be powered using normal aviation turbine fuel. So it's a complex mission that in the first part, it lifted off and then turned and flew on its wings till halfway. And after that it failed. Shows there was a certain capability which existed, but that it didn't go its full range, you will not call it a success. So you can call it a glass half full or a glass half empty. DRDO is calling it a mixed success.
Alright, but it is our first attempt at this developing a cruise missile, and therefore a success in the sense of having created it. We've been working on it since 2007.
Well, see, only a handful of countries have this capability. Russia, America, France, China. Pakistan also has this capability. America deployed cruise missiles very effectively during the Gulf War. This was India's maiden attempt to test a cruise missile. India has successfully mastered, deployed, and the army and forces are using what are called ballistic missiles. Cruise missile, this was the first test. And in a first test, if you had partial success or mixed success, as the DRDO is saying, we should not get very disheartened by it, but should persevere to have a full flight successful test. It's an extremely important weapon for the country simply because it can fly at low altitudes, it can fly at treetop level, it can fly at the level of buildings, it can evade radars and go a long distance and even carry nuclear warheads.
Alright, so a mixed success. Well, Pallav, let's take a look at this report that you had done before the launch today.
This is Nirbhay, the latest weapon in India's arsenal to strike deep into enemy territory. Unlike other ballistic missiles like Agni, it has a wing and pronounced tail fins. Scientists from the Defence Research and Development Organization have been working hard to make it a reality. It can be launched from a mobile launcher. It launches like a missile. Early into flight, special wings get deployed. It then flies like an aeroplane, highly maneuverable. It can fly at treetop level to avoid radar detection. It can even hover near the target, striking at will from any direction.
This is a subsonic cruise missile. The subsonic cruise missile are basically aircraft converted into a cruise missile.
A fire and forget system that cannot be jammed. It can even carry nuclear bombs. Several women have also contributed to its making. Are you afraid of working with missiles?
No, never, sir. I was so much proud to working in this missile project.
This is India's Nirbhay missile, a cruise missile which lifts off like a missile, then flies like an aircraft. It can even hover and loiter near a target before striking. A very first development by India. India now joins a handful of countries which have this capability. With camera person Alphonse Raj, deep inside the Defence Research and Development Organization, Pallav Bagla for NDTV.
All right, Pallav, that's your report done earlier. Now it has been test fired, a mission that had to be terminated halfway. But I'm seeing the DRDO has said that mission objectives have been met.
Yes, see the mission objectives, there are many. Your launcher has to launch it correctly, it has to come out of the canister, the first stage rocket has to be fired, it has to go up and turn like an aircraft, fly like an aircraft, remain in the air, do some maneuvers, and then it has to go and hit the target. In this particular case, it was to hit a target something between 700 and 1000 kilometers away, and halfway into the flight it had to be terminated, meaning it deviated from its path, which essentially could mean that something went wrong with the control and guidance of the missile. When that goes wrong, there is a self-explosion which can be triggered within the missile to blow it up, which is why the missile was probably terminated somewhere over the Bay of Bengal when it was under its first maiden flight test.
All right, and of course this is all in secrecy. We do not know where they were firing this from.
Well, we know where they were firing it from because this was a test from the Chandipur missile test range, which is in Odisha, and it was fired towards the Bay of Bengal. But why it went wrong would be a matter of detail which will be disclosed. Where it was made and how it has been mastered is a matter of secrecy, and that is understandably because these are national security issues and the details of which cannot be disclosed. Even I cannot tell you where I went and saw the missile when I did the earlier report.
In that report.
But at the same time, that it was tested today is a culmination of a long effort, and that culmination will probably go along. So failures are stepping stones to success. So we should not get disheartened, and the country should not lose sight that we could taste success in the next launch. And you learn so much more by failures than by simple successes. Look at the PSLV. The first flight of the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle of the ISRO failed, and after that they've had more than 20 consecutively successful launches. Even the DRDO tasted success in the Agni 5 launch, which is a rarity for most nations when they attempt such complex missile launches.
All right, very briefly, what happens next?
Next is, right now the data would be analyzed as to what has gone wrong, why in mid-flight the missile deviated. There would be a certain inquiry which would happen, and then the corrections will be given, and the flight test would be done again, obviously having corrected whatever went wrong.
All right, Pallav, thanks so much for joining us with that. So India today did test fire its cruise missile Nirbhay. However, the flight had to be terminated halfway into the trial as it had deviated, and it's being called a mixed success by the DRDO.